You may remember one of the best mecha anime to air in years came out not too long ago. Titled 86, it's based on the light novel series of the same name. Despite being a 2-core series, only the first 3 light novels were adapted. Compare that to most anime based on light novels where they adapt 3 volumes into a single core. That just gives you an idea of how dense this series is. Welcome once again to Musings by Danon. On my Patreon, there's a tier that allows you to choose the content that appears on this channel. Patrons of this tier can ask me to read a light novel or manga or even watch an anime, provided they aren't too long, of course. There's only so much time in the month. I will then create a video where I give my thoughts on the series, sometimes critiquing the series while others recommending it. This month, longtime Patreon supporter Waflles asked that I read Volume 5 of 86. The problem is, I've seen 86, but I hadn't read Volume 4. So this video will be covering both Volume 4, while the Volume 5 video will be coming soon. And yes, I have heard that the anime is coming back next year with a new season from the same studio. Hopefully we don't have the same production issues that Season 1 had. Also, if it wasn't clear, there will be spoilers for 86. Consider this your warning. But before we get to that, I should bring people up to speed on events that happened in the anime. If you've seen 86, go ahead and skip ahead to the timestamp on screen now. Oh, before we get any further, please like and subscribe. I know it's annoying to keep hearing it, but if I don't ask, many people forget to tap those buttons. 86 tells the story of a group of people who were stripped of their humanity and forced to fight against the Legion, an army of AI soldiers built to wipe out humanity. So, racism, child soldiers, and mechs. Sounds interesting, right? Except that in the first episode, Shine Nozen, the Undertaker, pulls his gun out and shoots one of his friends in the head. You see, this was a mercy killing because their friend was already mortally wounded. Or, as the white pigs would put it, a damaged processor. But why did it have to be the head? Don't worry, we'll get to that. Our story begins in the Republic of San Magnolia, which was divided into 86 districts. The democratic nation was almost entirely populated by the Alba, a race with white hair and white eyes. They take pride in their purity, while the Colorata, those with colored hair and eyes, are considered second-class citizens. 9 years ago, war broke out between the Republic and the Empire of Giad. The Empire, desperate to win, created the Legion, AI soldiers. The AI turned on their creators and, combined with an internal rebellion that overthrew the royal family, saw to the fall of the Empire. But the Legion continued the war, attacking the Republic relentlessly. The Alba forced the 86, those with colored hair and eyes, therefore impure, to fight for them. Men, women, and eventually children were thrown into the flames of war. The Alba went so far as to deny them humanity. Only humans have white hair and eyes, everyone who is impure is not a human. Therefore, when the 86 died in combat, the news reported that the Legion was beaten back, but there were no human casualties. The 86 piloted mechs that were basically coffins with guns. Called juggernauts, they were fast, but had little to no armor. Now, to show the public that the Alba were actually the ones fighting the war, the military created a position called handlers. The public believed that handlers controlled the autonomous juggernauts, and are therefore heroes. In reality, handlers are connected via a device known as a para-raid, which connects handlers psychically to the minds of the 86, the real fighters of the war. It's not a true psychic connection, but it does get around the Legion's electronic communications jamming. Basically, 2 people on a para-raid can share senses. The more senses shared, the quicker you burn your brain out. The human mind is only meant to process so much data after all. But extra hearing? Not a big deal. Vladilena Milize, known as Lena to her friends, is an outspoken woman who rails against the plight of the 86. She's a sympathizer and a bit of a revolutionary, which earns her no love in the military. So to help rein her in, she's sent to manage Spearhead Squadron. The squadron is considered curse thanks to their leader, Undertaker. Every single handler who's tried to manage Spearhead Squadron in the past has either gone mad or committed suicide. The reason why is the main plot of the first season. Quick aside so you can better understand the series. In the world of 86, espers exist. People with extraordinary powers crop up every once in a while along certain bloodlines. Some people can see into the minds of their friends and see and hear what they're seeing. Some are geniuses beyond the comprehension of mere mortals. And others can hear the thoughts of the dead. Shanae Nozin, nicknamed the Reaper, callsign Undertaker, whose symbol is a headless skeleton wielding a shovel, is an esper. He can hear the thoughts of his family and those close to him. However, after an incident involving his brother, he finds he can hear the thoughts of the dead. Now, most of the time, the dead are at peace, so there's no issue. But that is not the case anymore. Another quick aside, but don't worry, I promise I'll come to the point soon. The Legion, created by the Giad Empire in a desperate attempt to fight back the bloody rebellion against the royal family, failed. The royal family was wiped out and the Giad Federacy replaced it, a new government created to be a representative republic. But the Legion fights on, attempting to wipe out all of humanity. The engineers who created the Legion were worried that their invention might grow out of control. So to prevent this from happening, all Legion CPUs were set to shut down after 50,000 hours. 50,000 hours is just shy of 6 years. It's about 5 years and 8.5 months. Which means the war should be over in just 2 more years, right? Part of life is the resistance to death. A creature will do all in its power to stay alive. That is natural, and even beings created artificially will try to live as long as possible. So if their central processing units will shut down after 50,000 hours, they just need a new processing unit. The human brain will do nicely. That's right, you thought this was a sci-fi mech series. Nope, it is a horror series. Known as shepherds, these Legion soldiers act as commanding officers, capable of leading massive assaults against what used to be their compatriots. Shin Nozin can hear the Legion's thoughts because of the dead fellow 86, whose brains have been inserted to act as the new CPUs, and they are constantly screaming with their final dying thoughts. Which is why the Reaper ensures to put a bullet through the brains of his dying or dead companions, before the Legion can pick up his friends and turn them into his enemies. It is also why he drove all of his previous handlers insane. Because just as he can hear the sounds of the Legion, so can his handlers. In fact, everyone in Spearhead Squadron is shocked when Lena comes back the next day after hearing the Legion for the first time. The climax of the first arc is Shin hunting his own brother down, which you think would bring him peace, but there can be no peace for the 86. The next arc involves the surviving members of Spearhead Squadron leaving the Republic of San Magnolia and joining the Giad Republic. At first, they're treated as lost children, war orphans who must be protected at all costs, sent back to school to have a childhood that was stolen from them by the Alba. But the 86 don't want that. They only know war. So after a year or so of a peaceful life, they ask to join the military. The adults are hesitant. After all, these are children, and sending them off to die is something only monsters would do. But Shin and his companions are insistent, and the adults eventually capitulate. Besides, with the Legion throwing new weapons at them, they need experienced soldiers, no matter how old. And Shin, despite being 17, has more than 5 years' experience as a combat leader. He is the best in the world, but that came at a huge cost, which we'll get to later. Now, 2 major events happen that lead to the beginning of Book 4. The first is that the Republic of San Magnolia was overrun by a massive invasion from the Legion. And the second is that the brain belonging to the personal knight of the deposed child Empress of Giad has been implanted into a powerful mech. One that needs rail lines to move and has an enormous cannon capable of leaving huge swaths of destruction from miles away. I suppose I should explain the Empress and her knight part. The Empire of Giad was a classic monarchy with knights, nobles, and an obsession with bloodlines, just like medieval Europe. Kyria Nozin, from the same clan as Shin, our main character, was the knight protector of Augustus Frederica Adeladler, now known as Frederica Rosenfort. As a young child, Frederica saw her knight, Chiara, become a brutal butcher. He killed countless people to protect her, and she watched him change. She grew afraid of him, faked her own death, and disappeared. Shin is forced to fight against this enormous tank alone, but he does have Frederica's help. She's able to use her psychic powers to distract and annoy Kiriara, and Shin defeats the enormous tank single-handedly. But just as he's about to get killed by enemy reinforcements, a missile strike saves the day. As it turns out, the attack came from the Republic of San Magnolia, specifically survivors who had fought back against the Legion invasion. And those survivors were led by none other than Lina Milize. Now known as Bloody Reina, she personally took charge when the military failed to protect the Republic. To protest the idiocy and rampant racism, she dyed a lock of her hair blood red. Of course, at this time, Lina doesn't realize who the other person is that she's talking to. That doesn't come till later. The Republic of San Magnolia sends a special officer to work as an attaché and hammer out a military plan with the Giad Republic. Of course, they send their greatest shame, a pro-Colorado who had the gall to not only prove herself right, but to actually beat back the Legion, Lina Milize. She then gets to meet with the special troops that will help take back territory from the Legion, the former members of Spearhead Squadron. This scene alone is worth watching the anime for. It is emotional, uplifting, and beautiful. Easily one of my favorite scenes in the anime. But now, we're ready to start our deep dive into Book 4. Book 4 starts out with Lina and Shin awkwardly walking around the base together. The two have developed feelings for each other, but haven't ever seen each other, and haven't talked in almost 2 years. So they're taking things slow. They're also 17, so being awkward when it comes to romance is not only expected, it's the norm. And when I say awkward teasing, after Lina gets some water dumped on her and goes to take a shower, she connects via para-raid to Shin so they can continue their conversation. Which makes Shin extremely embarrassed because it's like he's talking to her while they're both in the shower. Of course, Lina is a bit embarrassed, but since she was the one who initiated, she has to push through. Here, I'll read the passage. Come to think of it, she still hadn't gotten an explanation as to why this had happened to her. She opened the bathroom door and put on the para-raid device resting on top of her towel, activating the para-raid. The target was, of course, Shin, who was waiting in the corridor outside her private quarters. Captain, the call was shut down wordlessly. She reconnected the resonance and asked as soon as the call was connected, "Why did you hang up?" His response came in a disconnected tone. If anything, why did you resonate now of all times? We were in the middle of a conversation. We can finish it later. At least wait until you shower, please. Lina refused to back down. Why can't we do this while I'm in the shower? What do you mean, why? There was an exasperated pause between them, which Lina broke by persistently pressing him. You were fine with it before. When you told me about the black sheep and the shepherds 2 years ago in the Spearhead Squadron barracks, you were connected while you were in the shower. Yes, but you don't seem fine with it, so you don't have to force yourself. Well, yes, she was quite embarrassed about this. Only their sense of hearing was being resonated, but it gave the impression that they were face to face. Lina realized that this meant her feeling of embarrassment over the situation was being transmitted directly to Shin, which left him feeling restless. And to top it off, the sounds of the running water and her breath leaking out from the heat and the steam, as well as the sound of the water dripping from her long satin-like hair, were also being transmitted. But this time we can't, The sensory resonance ended again, and this time it seemed that he'd removed his raid device, since she couldn't reconnect. As experienced and dangerous as Shin is on the battlefield, he is powerless against beautiful girls. He does get mad on her behalf, though. You see, to explain why the water was dumped on Lina, I need to give you a little backstory. When the 86 sought sanctuary in the Federacy was appalled at the actions of the Republic of San Magnolia. And when an officer from that republic was showing up to coordinate attacking the Legion and fighting back territory they had lost when the massive Legion assault came, they were not exactly happy about it. So all of their anger at what the Republic had done, the millions of dead citizens, was directed at Lina. Shin took them in hand and set up the water prank. It would humiliate Lina, but wouldn't hurt her. Shin explained all of this to Lena, and she tells him this is a well-deserved punishment for me. I can't get mad. But Shin gets mad at her. That's not true, he cuts her off. The problem was the Federacy wanted revenge on behalf of the 86. But the Federacy weren't the ones who were murdered by the Republic. The 86 were. And most of the 86 don't have a problem with Lena specifically. In fact, as the book goes on, we've learned that most of the 86 have returned the same attitude towards the Alba of the Republic as they put towards the Colorado. Remember, the Alba decided that the 86 weren't human, were nothing more than animals. They were pigs in human form capable of human speech, but weren't actually human. Ergo, they were nothing but animals sent to fight in the place of real humans. And now the 86 have the same attitude. The Alba are nothing but white pigs, and humans don't care when pigs make noise, even if that noise sounds like human speech. But Lena was different. She tried to understand and work with the 86, and if anyone else had requested their aid when the Legion overran the Republic, the 86 would have ignored the squeals of the pigs. And Shin reminds her that the situation in the 86 sector wasn't something she caused, nor had the power to rescind. It is not her responsibility, nor should she be blamed for it. The two wander around the base and discuss various things. Eventually, they arrive in Shin's room, as he has something to drop off. Lena rather shyly asks if they can start calling each other by their first names. For these past 2 years, I've fought my own way, even if it doesn't compare to yours. And even if I couldn't make my dream come true, at the very least, I never ran away. So could you treat me like you do the others? Obviously, in public, they'd have to use titles, but privately, she wanted to be the same as his other companions. Raiden, Theo, Corinna, and Anju. For Lena, this isn't about getting closer romantically, it's about being accepted as a member of the team. Shin replies that he doesn't mind, but on one condition. Please stop making that tragic face. I don't want you trying to live every day atoning for sins you never committed. So stop wearing that macabre uniform. It doesn't suit you. And neither does this hair. Shin wants Lena to stop bearing a cross that doesn't exist. Lena became the bloodstained queen with a lock of dyed hair and a red uniform dyed black because she had no one. Shin had left her, her mother and uncle died in the Legion invasion, and no one would fight with her. So Lena became a symbol, something strong that could lead people to victory. And she did. But now she doesn't have to fight alone. Shin reminds her, didn't you want to fight together? With us? Lena breaks down crying, leaning on his chest. Now, I don't want to cover absolutely everything that happened in this book, and honestly, I think that we've only covered stuff that would happen in the first episode of the new season. But I did want to cover some big events that happened in the book, so consider this a major spoiler warning. The goal of the Strike Force is to raid an underground terminal that the Legion has taken over. The terminal was once part of the Republic, and over 1 million Republic citizens lived there. The Strike Force are to destroy 2 massive enemy mechs, one known as an auto-production type, which creates new mechs, and the other one known as the Admiral, a type of Legion that produces energy packs for other Legion mechs. The problem is, the base that the Legion has taken over was a large-scale underground commercial facility. In other words, an underground mall with 7 subterranean levels, as well as several lines and platforms. It was a massive complex, and the hallways were narrow. The Strike Force was used to maximum maneuverability. They relied on speed and the ability to suddenly change direction to confuse and defeat the Legion. But those tactics won't work very well in what amounted to a dungeon. Now, a subplot for this arc is Annette trying to apologize to Shin. Remember, they were childhood friends before the war. And when the Colorado were sent to live in Sector 86, she said some rather cruel things to him. But before she can resolve the situation, she's kidnapped by a new type of Legion. It was fast and invisible and wiped out an entire squad in an instant. Eventually, they give the new unit the codename of Phonics. So, the Strike Force now has 2 new objectives: rescue Annette and destroy the Phonics. For some reason, Annette isn't guarded after she's been captured. This is probably because the Phonics took off to fight against Shin. So Annette wanders around the underground facility trying to figure out what's going on. And while searching, she discovers what happened to the million citizens who were captured by the Legion. Many suspected they were just killed, but that is not the case. As the strike squadron moves down into the underground terminal, they come across survivors. But the Alba they find are unresponsive. They do not talk, they do not react to stimuli. It's as if they were walking corpses, as if their minds were gone. Now, the Legion has been taking the heads of 86 for years to fuel their shepherds and black sheep, but those were rare. Every encounter, they'd be lucky to get one intact brain to be used as a processor. And when Shin figured out what the Legion was doing, he always tried to deny the brains of his fallen comrades. But all of a sudden, the Legion had access to more than 1 million brains. Now, the problem with the old brains wasn't that they were damaged. It was that they weren't fresh. Generally, soldiers weren't captured alive. Severed heads were transported to Legion facilities so they could be installed and serve as new CPUs that didn't have a 50,000-hour limit. But now the Legion had 1 million cowed humans, too scared to do anything, too weak to fight because they'd been relying on others to do the fighting for them. So the Legion had the opportunity to perfect fresh brain extraction. They got very good at it. And when the strike force got too close to the Admiral and realized that there was a chance they might lose, the Legion turned on all 1 million shepherds at the same time. The psychic energy overwhelmed Shin, and he screamed. He'd become numb listening to the voices of the dead. He'd even learned to sleep hearing them. But now, instead of a few dozen voices, the death cries of 1 million minds slammed into his brain. He heard their screams and terror, and it almost caused him to lose his sanity. He did lose consciousness, which made it rather difficult when the Phonics came hunting for him. Overall, this book was phenomenal. The 86 series is top-notch. You've got a bit of romance and comedy to help lighten the mood, but the humor is often gallows humor, which, if you've ever known a veteran or you've ever served yourself, you'll understand. People who face death every day developed rather warped senses of humor as a coping mechanism. But it does show the horrors of war, and the action scenes are top-notch. Characters you come to like get wiped out in a flash. Remember, at the beginning of Book 1, there were several members of Spearhead Squadron, but only 5 of them survived to the end of that book. If you want a light novel series that is as good as the anime, go read 86. I'll post a link down below to both Bookwalker and Amazon. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, a huge shout out to my editor Cute Stuff. I couldn't make these videos without her. If you'd like to hire her to edit your own videos, she can be reached at cutestuff.edits@gmail.com. Link is down below. If you're looking for ways to support the channel directly, you can head on over to patreon.com/Danon. There are several tiers to choose from. You can pick an anime or manga for me to do a video about, or you can join our monthly manga club. I also wanted to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons: Waflles, Jiraiya, Muffins, Marcus, Brett, Roxy, Alex, Borgie, Nasman, Conga, Chris, Robert, Pi, Kazaris, Booksu, Patrick, Tiz, Art, Richard, Sint, Boomy, Jackie, Finn, Zen, Osira, Justin, Christian, and Golden Walker. You guys are awesome. I post anime or manga videos often, or you can click here to watch additional videos. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time on Musings by Danon.